Hi. This tutorial is for the Acid Advanced Master Material for props. Go watch the trailer video if you are interested. The link is in the description. This video is only to show you the principle of functioning of my tools so that you can create environments like this one. To correctly learn the features and possibilities, check the examples of the map. The master materials are used in AAA Game Studio. They are created by technical artists who are specialized in this domain. If you are alone or a small team, but you want to make a game or a project with environments of good quality, you have to create your own master material. But it takes a lot of time and you don't have the resources or team of a big studio, or the knowledge of a technical artist. So you have to watch a lot of tutorials and create several small materials that are very limited in terms of features, so you just can't create the same results as the AAA studio. As a solo developer, I quickly realized that this was not the best method, that making several small materials for each different situation was a waste of time, and that I absolutely needed to create a master material. It took me 11 months of full-time work, and it was worth it because you will never need again to create several dozens of materials for each situation. It allows you to focus only on the setup of the material instances for the creation of the environment. The master material has all the features of a AAA studio, and you can use almost all the features at the same time. Instead of the small materials you had to create before, when you wanted to have triplanar, you had to create a new material. If you also wanted to have vertex painting to blend several materials, again you had to create a new material. In fact, you spent more time making your materials than creating your environment. No more wasting time on creating dozens of small materials. You can now focus only on creating your environment. However, Unreal Engine does not handle the master material as good as small materials. This means that when you work on a material instance, the response time is longer for some actions, mainly when enabling the parameter checkboxes. And you can no longer scroll the value by dragging your mouse because the software will have difficulties. Instead, you have to click and type the value. However, these are minor inconveniences compared to the time saved in creating your environments. The first thing to configure before launching the software is the shader complexity, depending on the type of game you want to create on which platform. The default value is 2000, which is quite low for modern games. For example, if you are creating a realistic game on PC, you can set it to 5000. The materials can sometimes be very complex depending on the number of features enabled. It doesn't matter if you have more than 1000 or 1500 instructions on some materials, but it should be avoided as much as possible. So to change the default value, turn off your software. You need to go to your installation folder, Engine, Config, then open Base Engine. Go to the line Max Pixel Shader Additive Complexity Count and change the value from 2000 to the value you want. Once this is done, you can save and exit the file, then start the software. In this tutorial I will use Unreal Engine 4 because it is in this software where all the features work. UE5 has trouble with the world position offset. Nanite rasterization system removes all geometry on flat meshes. So with more than 1 million triangles, it deletes everything and keeps only thousands of triangles, which makes it impossible to use the world position offset. It works better when the meshes are not flat. But as a whole, Nanite is not good at all for the displacement of materials, and therefore also for the deformation of the snow. Nanite doesn't support vertex painting in the editor and requires painting in an external program to blend the different materials, which is really annoying. I encourage you to give Epic Games feedback on these issues if we want them to improve Nanite, otherwise I don't think we'll ever get these features working. When you start the software, you will see the shader complexity with the value you have configured. Before you creating materials in Unreal Engine, you need to have textures maps packed. If you use Megascan with UE4, you can pack textures maps with Bridge, but in UE5 they removed the option. So it's no longer possible to pack the texture maps, you have to do it manually. For those who don't use Megascan, you also have to do it manually. Usually this is done in another software like Photoshop and gets boring quickly because it is quite time consuming. So to make it easier for you, I have created two tools with Substance 3D Designer that allow you to do this more quickly. They require downloading Substance Player to work. The tools and software are free. The links are in description. Once the software is installed, all you have to do is import your textures. I have created some additional settings allowing you to add final adjustments to your texture if you wish before exporting your packed maps textures. To export the texture maps, deselect all the textures, then select AO and NHR maps, delete the %G, put the name of your texture and choose the destination, then you can export. If you are using Bridge with UE4, you can go to Export Settings and configure your maps like this. Do the same for 3D models in Atlas. With Atlas textures, you can also pack translucency and opacity together. Once configured, you can click on Export and the plugin in UE4 will do the job. You can then switch to Unreal Engine to configure the texture compression methods to work correctly. When using Bridge to pack for UE4, you must remember to check the flip green channel box, otherwise the normal map will be incorrect in OpenGL. Unreal Engine uses DirectX. If you use my tool with a normal map in OpenGL, you can directly convert it in DirectX before exporting, which will save you that extra step in Unreal Engine. You can now start to configure your material. With the plugin, it creates a default material instance. Just replace it with the master material props. If you are not using the plugin, you can create a new material instance and select Master Material Props. If you create a basic material instance with just one texture, you just insert the two textures maps packed and that's it. In this example, I will show you how to use the tessellation in the world position offset. For the different methods of displaying the textures, go to the UV Material tab. Then you can choose whether you want to use UV, world position or triplanar. In this case, I will use world position. Below the world position parameter, you can choose the direction of projection. The default projection axis is the Z-axis, which corresponds to 3. When using world position or triplanar, the scale is based on the physical size, so if you set 1, it corresponds to 1 meter, which makes it easy to adjust the size of the texture. The normal map is recreated from the packaged channels. Sometimes there are small gaps in information that do not recreate the normal map correctly. The default value for the parameter Z correction normal is 1.5, as it works in most cases. But if there is a problem, you can decrease the value to 0.5, or if the normal map lacks some height, you can increase it to 2. To enable tessellation or world position offset, check the box in the Detail tab and in the Materials in the Layers tab. Make sure both are enabled. You can enable dithered blending to blend meshes into the ground. You have several parameters for total control of the tessellation to better handle the performance and the result. The far displacement feature replaces the tessellation with the world position offset when you are far away. This keeps the general shape of the displacement when the tessellation is no longer active. To work faster, you can create parent instance materials and create children of materials in the Layers tab. It's like creating presets so you can reuse them over and over again without having to recreate them from scratch every time you need them. When I create my snow preset, I only work in the Details tab and don't modify the Layer Parameters tab because we don't want to have a specific material defined when we want to use our preset. You can enable the tessellation if you want to have the deformation of the snow. In the parameters, you can enable the emissive textures to have the snow glints. The intensity of the displacement of the tessellation is 100, so the snow height will be incorrect. I set the height intensity of the snow to 0.1. The parameters snow material character tracks depth and edges correspond to the materials during the deformation of the snow. Once you have configured your preset, when you create a material instance, you can select it instead of the master material props. In the Layers tab, you can also create a material preset. Once configured, you just have to click on Save Child. You can control the amount of snow from the MPC weather or by using a blueprint like in the example map. You should place the blueprint in your map, preferably at the lowest point of your map, to make sure that the deformation of the snow works at all altitudes. Although the amount of snow can be adjusted in real time, the deformation is captured permanently, so if there is no snow before and the character has moved, there will already have been tracks in the snow. The previously enabled snow glints parameter uses a texture of small dots in several channels to create this effect. You can also adjust the intensity and speed of the effect. There is a setting to adjust the snow cover offset. This allows more control over the aesthetics of each props. In reality, some objects have more adherence to the snow and are covered more quickly. When your character walks in the snow is removed, but you can decide if you want to see the material under the snow by enabling the parameter visibility material under snow. When you create a new material layer, you can select the layer you want. It doesn't really matter unless you use the custom primitive data parameters. In this case, you should select them in order, from layer 1 to 4, to make it easier to find them when using custom data. The names of the layers like RVP mean red vertex painting, but it doesn't matter because you can choose the vertex painting channel in each layer. The name is just a small oversight from me, don't pay attention. This will be fixed in an update that will also contain new master materials for vegetation, windows, decals, and probably others. In the material layer blend props, you have 6 blending methods. You just have to enable the method you want. I will blend different materials using vertex painting and height blending. I invite you to have a look at the different methods of blending in the example map because I won't show everything in this tutorial, just the principle of how the master material works. If you have a texture that is not square, you can change its scale in the UV settings. You also have offset parameters in % and a rotation parameter in degrees if needed. In the material parameters, you have all the necessary parameters to adapt the visual of the texture according to your needs, like the color of the albedo, the intensity of the normal map, and more. For a better understanding of the settings for blending the materials, you can enable the parameter Visualize Mask Blending. When I enabled the height blending feature, I got an error message because the tessellation is enabled everywhere except on the new material I just created. Height blending allows you to blend two different materials by comparing their heights, so you can create interesting blending. When using vertex painting, having a smooth transition can sometimes be complicated when you have too many vertices. It's better to not have too much geometry for this method. When you use textures with world position or triplanar, the projection is done in the world space, so if your mesh moves, the textures will stay in place. You can enable the object position feature so the texture will follow the mesh no matter its location or rotation. You have to enable it on every material and layer blend that uses the world position or triplanar. The same principle also works on snow, angle blending, and all features that use world position or triplanar. You can use textures with opacity. If you also have transparency, you can combine them into one texture. When you have small meshes scattered on the ground and they disappear with the culling when they are far away instead of noticing their sudden disappearing, you can make them fade into the ground after some distance to hide them. If you have your own weather system, you can enable the Mask Weather Occlusion feature and insert your render target to hide the weather effects of materials when they are under cover and should not be affected. When using the texture mask, you have a histogram select feature that allows you to select a specific area of the mask. When you blend several materials, you may feel like everything is flat. With the mask edges to normal feature, it allows you to add depth to the blends. Unreal Engine does not support ambient occlusion when using dynamic lighting, so I created a parameter that is enabled by default to simulate a fake ambient occlusion. To show you the difference, I downloaded a grass texture on Megascan. The result is clearly visible when the parameter is disabled. The ambient occlusion output is ignored as mentioned in the documentation. If you want to be notified about news, updates, or if you have any questions, you can join my Discord server. The link is in description. Leave a like and subscribe to be informed of the next videos of Textures 3D models.